And so from that point, I graduated after my internship, went back to school, of course, but I stayed in touch. And then the big moment comes, I'm going to get a job. I have an internship under my belt. I know these people. I know Joe Tate. I know Ernie Harwell. I know Vince Bagley. Wow, I've got all these references. And I start sending them out. Cassettes, letters, rejection, 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 nothing, zero, nothing. And the only nibble I got was in Amsterdam, New York, and in the Mohawk Valley. And they said, we have an opening for news. I'll take it. I just want to get my foot in the door. I'll take it. Well, we have a guy here that we think maybe, and never heard back. So finally, I decide I'm going to grad school. I'm going to grad school. Are we good? Okay. We're going to grad school at the University of Washington. And so I'm enrolled, ready to go in the University of Washington. A week before I start, out of the blue, I get a call at home. And it's from KIRO Radio, KIRO Radio in Seattle. And they said, hey, we were going through a list of resumes and we found yours. And are you interested in coming down because we have an opening in the sports department for a glorified gopher? And I said, done. And here, a resume I had sent 7 months before. 7 months had been sitting probably in a box, maybe not open, maybe they decided whatever happened. And all I remember is I'm in a meeting with the sports director and with the program manager, and he was saying, okay, let's see, you have your degree, that's very, very good. You have an internship, good, and here's what you did. And your references, we're gonna call you reference. Is that all right? Is everything on this resume legit? You did graduate, right? Yes, sir. You have these references, like they just aren't random names that, no, you can call them. Okay, they called 2 of the 3 references. They called Ernie Harwell and they called Vince Bagley. And so I got the job. So I'm there and I did everything. I was a glorified gopher, but it was a glorified gopher where I showed up an hour and a half before my shift and I was the last one to leave. I was a gym rat, so to speak, to use a basketball terminology. And after a year and a half, my boss, Pete Gross, God rest his soul, he was the broadcaster for the Seattle Seahawks and the University of Washington. He came to me and he said, you know, you're the 3rd man on a 2-man staff and you need to grow and flourish. You've spent your time here. You're ready for the next step. Get a job where you can really do your thing. So I said, okay, and he helped me. And I got a job doing talk radio in Columbus, Ohio at WBNS. And I was there from February, and then in July, out of the blue, the phone rings in our newsroom. And this person says, Chuck Swirsky? Yes. This is so-and-so from a broadcast company, and your name's come up, and we'd like you to record tonight's sports talk show and send it to us because you're under consideration for a job. And I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a friend of mine. Thank you. And we're going to get to these questions in a second, I promise. I just want to finish this statement. I thought it was a joke, and I hung up on him. I said, yeah, right, thank you. I thought it was a friend of mine. He calls back a minute and a half later and says, this is not a joke, and if you hang up on me again, you're definitely not going to be under consideration for this job. So I said, wow. So I sent him a tape, and the next thing I know, WCFL called. They were going through a transition from music in Chicago to news and talk in Marina Towers, right down the street here in Chicago. And they flew me in for an interview. I got the job. I was on from 7 until 11 o'clock at night. And the first night I'm on the air, there was the log, and the log had all commercials. Nowadays, everything's digital, but in those days, it was a piece of paper. And you saw the commercials, how many, the commercials, when you had the, toss for a break, everything. Well, I'm going to do this visually for our viewers and other campuses. But I got there, and I'm fired up. First day, you know, we had a practice, all that. So finally, I get the chair. And now this is Chicago, and I'm 25 years young doing a sports talk. And so I sit there, and can someone tell me what's here? What's on the back of this? Nothing. Correct. It's blank. So I sit down and I said, oh, our engineer, Ed Murphy, who's still working in our business. I said, Ed, you know, I'm going over this log and these are blank pieces of paper. What's up? He goes, oh, they didn't tell you? You just joined the lowest rated station in American broadcast history. No one listens, and that's because no one's buying commercials either. I said, what? And he says, yeah. He goes, you know what? And so remember, I'm on 4 hours a night. We didn't get a call. I'm saying, hey, this is my first night in Chicago. Let's talk some sports. And I'm giving the number out, and it's like, no one's calling. And I ended up interviewing myself. Chuck, what do you think of the Cubs? Well, Dave Kingman. I'm thinking like, okay, where am I at? But as one thing led to the next, and then from WCFL, The Loop heard me, and I was with WLUP for a little over a year, and then WGN came out of nowhere. I was there for close to 14 years. So we're going to talk more about that, but I do want to get calls, some questions, by the way. Courtney from Chicago. What do you do to keep excitement when the Bulls are playing badly? Well, we've been fortunate because for 6 years, who is Courtney, by the way? Oh, okay. Fortunately, the Bulls haven't played that badly for 6 years, but there are nights when, like all teams, they just don't have it. But you can't control the scoreboard. This is very important. You have no control over the scoreboard. What you can control is your focus and your drive and your energy level. Now, if they're down by 20, you can't act like they're up by 20. Hey, the Bulls are down by 20, but hey. No, you can't do that. I mean, you have to be professional. But that doesn't mean that you take plays off or you're goofing around on the air and you're ripping people left and right. You have to report what you see. But, I mean, you know, it's going to happen. For pro sports, I always look at it this way. There are probably going to be 10 games where you win that you're probably supposed to lose. There are going to be 10 games where you lose that you were probably expected to win. And then in that 60-game pocket in an NBA schedule, you're going to find a consistency about your team. And, I mean, you got to have players. Let's be honest. You can have the greatest coach in the world. If you don't have players, you're not going to win. I don't care what if you don't have a pitching staff in baseball, not going to get it done. Not going to get it done. And so, but as a broadcaster, you can get it done by making sure that you're completely focused and you know, continue to have that complete commitment to a game, and you don't take possessions off. Just like in you know, I look at it this way. I learned a lot about a player in the NBA during a blowout, either up or down, because it's easy when it's a tight game to see, okay, every player is engaged and they're into it and whatnot. But when you're getting blown out, does that guy hustle back on defense? Does that guy really like just take possessions off? Does that guy like seem like he's thinking about, hey, you know what, I just saw, you know, somebody who's pretty hot in the fourth row and I got to get her number. I mean, you know, I mean, who knows? I mean, you know, you don't know what goes through the mind. But, you know, you can't, you know, a player, you got to make sure you stay focused for 48 minutes, just like a broadcaster. Okay, here's another one. Terry from Cleveland. Bob Teack is now head communications for the Catholic Diocese of Cleveland and PA announcer for the Indians. Well, if you ever see Bob, give him my best. Great man, and I love him. Wow, I did not know that. Thank you. Very good. Kendall from Cincinnati. What's one thing I should focus on becoming for a play-by-play announcer? Very good question, Kendall. And again, if you have text, they know how to reach. Okay, so one thing I should focus on becoming a play-by-play announcer. Always be yourself. Always be yourself. Never try and be somebody that you are not. Everyone of us in this room, in Cincinnati, Columbus, Denver, Lombard, Miami, wherever, everyone is unique, and that's the beauty of sport. It's the beauty of broadcasting. You know, I'm watching the World Cup, and I'm hearing these different announcers, and they have it down. I mean, they are good. They are really good. And I did soccer. I did the Chicago Sting, and I wasn't very good. And, you know, you have to know your strengths, and you have to know your weaknesses. And I admire people who can do a great call. Doc Emmerich, to me, you could put him at baseball, football, basketball, whatever. I've known Doc 30 years. He is awesome. He is a great hockey announcer, maybe the best that's ever lived. Maybe the best probably on a Mount Rushmore of announcers, period. But you got to be yourself. You can't be, if you go in to say, I want to be Dick Enberg, I want to be Al Michaels, I want to be Bob Costas. Well, those are all great goals, but you know what? Worry about being yourself. Yourself. That's all. So that's a good question, Kendall. Thank you.